The trip back to the negotiator was quick. Anakin made a grumbling protest about going back to his flagship, but was unanimously shot down. Helix forced them all to the infirmary, not hearing a single dissenting opinion about it, and recruiting Waxer, Boyle, Chris, and Longshot to his cause. Choiceless, Obi-Wan, Anakin, Rex, and Cody found themselves marched into Helix's domain and examined. It didn't take long for the medic to determine there would be no lasting effects from the gas and to properly tend to Cody's head wound. The commander had narrowly avoided stitches. That completed, they all tromped up to the bridge to debrief the council and the chancellor about their royal Krith up of a mission. It was during the ride up to the bridge in the lift that Kaz finally spotted out the lightsaber hanging on Cody's belt. He frowned at the oddly curved hilt, something striking him as familiar about that design. When he pinned down where he'd seen it before his eyes went round, it looked like Asajj Ventress's blade. Gaze snapping up to Cody's face, Kaz examined the commander in the Force, looking for any traces of darkness and relaxing a little when he found none. Still, that weapon got his hackles up. "Cody, why do you have Asajj Ventress's lightsaber?" Kaz asked challengingly, arms crossed over his chest. "Ventress was there?" Ahsoka yelped, looking at all of them in shock. "You didn't tell me that." "That's because she wasn't, Snips," Anakin interjected. He pointed at the weapon on Cody's belt. "That's Count Dooku's lightsaber." "What?" Ahsoka immediately protested. "No way!" Rex laughed at her disbelief. "It is. He's telling the truth. Why does Commander Cody have it?" Ahsoka interrogated her captain, gaze shrewd. "Because I want it away from him," Cody answered her, unable to keep a hint of pride out of his voice. "You're kidding," Kaz breathed, eyes lighting up. "Nope," Cody said, smirking down at the cadet. He chuckled. "I got a little singed with lightning right after though." Rex glared at him. "I don't remember you mentioning that to Helix." "That's because I didn't," Cody said with an exasperated roll of his eyes. "If I had, he wouldn't have let me leave." "Wizard," Kaz whispered, looking even more enamored with Cody than he had been before. The lift opened, dropping them onto the bridge, and they headed towards the back of it to the holotable. Rex looked down at Kaz, the two of them trailing behind the rest of the group, and smirked at the cadet, knowing what he was about to say next was likely to blow the kid's mind. He took great pleasure in it, as Kaz's honorary and probably soon to be actual uncle. "You want to know something else?" Rex said conspiratorially. "What?" Kaz asked, keeping his voice down so as to not draw attention to them. "Cody healed the crystal in the lightsaber," Rex said, voice almost a whisper. "It's not red anymore. It's white," Kaz gasped, hands flying up to his mouth. "Did? You're serious?" "Dead serious," Rex answered, trying to contain his grin and not really succeeding. "What are you two whispering about?" Cody said, keen eyes spotting them out as he settled around the holotable by Obi-Wan. "You really fixed the Kyber?" Kaz blurted out, unable to help himself. Cody sighed, giving Rex an annoyed look before his expression cleared and he focused back on Kaz. "Yeah, I did. I want to see." Kaz bounded over to the commander, amber eyes eager and pleading. "Wait, what?" Ahsoka looked between them, once again entirely confused. "I don't think we really have." "Oh, come on, Cody, please," Kaz begged, nearly bouncing in place. Cody folded like a house made of Sabayak cards. He reached down to his belt and pulled the lightsaber off it, taking a few steps back to give himself room, then ignited the blade. The pure white light was less shocking in the ship than it was down in the caves, but it was still bright and clearly visible. What set it apart from the others was the low, bass-toned hum and odd crackling sounds that it made, likely from whatever Cody had done to heal it in the caves. "Whoa!" Kaz exclaimed, eyes glittering in the light of the blade. "That's amazing! I just..." Ahsoka sighed, letting her face fall into her palm before looking back up at them with a rueful expression. "I think I should just stop being surprised. That's what I decided to go with," Anakin told her, nudging her shoulder in commiseration. "It's been all right, right?" She looked up at her master and nodded. "Just go with it." "Yep." Cody deactivated the blade and clicked it back to his belt, doing his best to ignore all the eyes on him. He realized belatedly that he just did that on the bridge and likely the entire ship would hear the story within the hour. He sighed, accepting his fate, and moved on. They had a report to make after all. Walking back to the holotable, he settled at Obi-Wan's right, his customary place, nodding at the general. Obi-Wan smiled briefly at him, then turned back to the task at hand. Hap, get us a connection to the council if you would. Yes, sir. Before long, the call connected and the blue forms of Master Yoda and Master Windu appeared in the center of the table. There was nothing in their manner to give away their moods, both masters calm and composed. A short silence settled over the collected group, each of them subtly looking at each other and trying to decide who would break first. Yoda was the one who spoke first. Good to hear from you it is, Obi-Wan. Concerned we have been. Ah yes, apologies Master Yoda. Obi-Wan began with a slight bow of his head. We ran into a little bit of trouble during our mission. Yes, so we've heard from Admiral Yularen, Master Windu said, rubbing the space between his brows. We gave the report to the Chancellor's office already and received one in return. That caused consternation around the table. Obi-Wan shared a concerned look with Anakin and asked, A report of what, Master Windu? Pirates have taken Count Dooku hostage and are holding him for ransom on a small planet called Florum. Negotiated, a price for Count Dooku has been, Yoda continued the narrative. However, contingent upon positive identification, it is. To Florum, you must go, Obi-Wan. Proof that Dooku has been captured, the Senate needs. Demanded you go unarmed, the pirates have. Obi-Wan ground his teeth together, trying to contain his mild frustration at this request. Master Yoda, forgive me, but we know nothing at all about these pirates. Are you sure this isn't some elaborate trap to obtain a real hostage? Especially since they are asking us to go in without weapons? Mace Windu sighed long and loud, shaking his head. No, we aren't. And to be honest, it probably is. But the Chancellor and Senator Amidala have made this request of you and Skywalker specifically. And the pirates made the stipulation of 2 Jedi only. Of course, we'll go and check it out, Master Windu, Anakin immediately agreed, once he heard who was actually doing the asking. Please, give Senator Amidala and the Chancellor our regards. Rex and Cody shared a knowing look, but said nothing, staying out of the range of the camera. On the way to Florin, the ransom will be. Protected by Commander Stone, it and the Senate representatives are. After you make a positive ID, Senator Karras will be dispatched and complete the negotiations on behalf of the Republic, Mace Windu explained, looking not at all pleased with this plan. We shall do our best, Masters, Obi-Wan said, not sounding enthusiastic, but also having little choice in the matter. As always, may the Force be with you, Master Windu said, bowing his head. And also with you, Obi-Wan returned the customary gesture, and the call disconnected, plunging them into a brief silence. He looked over at Cody and grimaced. I don't like it. Me either, Cody agreed. Well, I for one want my lightsaber back, Anakin said, an angry frown on his face. I'm pretty sure Dooku took it when he dropped that cave in on our heads. Yes, that's likely, considering Cody stole his, Obi-Wan said with a droll twist to his lips. Cody smirked over at Anakin. Sorry, sir. Anakin rolled his eyes but didn't say anything, choosing to cross his arms and huff. The group of them moved towards the lift on a silent signal in a loose gaggle, mostly consumed with their conversation, and Obi-Wan triggered the button for the lift as they talked. They all crammed inside, shuffling around to fit. The doors hissed shut with their customary waft of air, and the lift lurched into motion. Speaking of lightsabers, Obi-Wan pulled his from his belt and stared down at it. I need to figure out what happened to mine before we leave. Didn't Master Yoda say you had to go unarmed? Kaz asked him in confusion. Obi-Wan grumbled, then sighed. Yes, I suppose he did, didn't he? He held the blade out to Kaz. If you would, please put this in my quarters for safekeeping, Padawan. I will work on it when I return. Kaz took it, a mulish expression on his face. I want to go with you, Master. I will not have you walking into a den of pirates unarmed, Obi-Wan immediately retorted. Yeah, absolutely not, kid. Cody backed up Obi-Wan without an ounce of hesitation. You and Ahsoka are going to stay here, he smirked. Besides, who knows? You may have to come rescue us again. I think, Cody, that it will be you, Rex, Kaz and Ahsoka coming to our rescue, Obi-Wan said hesitantly, knowing he was about to encounter resistance. He was proven correct as the lift opened to the hangar and Cody started right in on his protest. Nudrar, General, you are not going down there without me. And if you are, you aren't going unarmed. Obi-Wan heaved a long sigh. The pirates specifically asked for Jedi, Cody. Yeah, well, that seems like an easy problem to solve then, doesn't it? Cody stopped in front of the shuttle they had just departed earlier, arms crossed over his chest. "Let me borrow some of your Jedi tunics. There's no way a bunch of low-life pirates will be able to tell the difference." Rex blurted out a startled laugh at Cody's sheer audacity. "You're not serious, Cody. Hey, wait a minute," Anakin protested. "Padme asked for me and Obi-Wan." "Not you. What the Senator doesn't know won't hurt her, sir," Cody immediately rebutted. "The pirates didn't ask for you, which is all that matters." Obi-Wan just stood there staring at Cody, silently impressed and a little bit pleased at Cody's dedication to protecting him. Cody's clear devotion to him warmed his heart, but it also set a dangerous precedent. Cody could not always go with him. However, the commander had a point. The pirates did not know which Jedi would show up, only that two would, and if they gave Cody a robe and kept his hood up, no one would notice. And likely, given that they were far out in the Outer Rim, no one on the planet would recognize Cody on sight, unless, of course, they had had a previous run-in with Jango Fett in his bounty hunter days. "What if they recognize you?" Obi-Wan asked him, warming to the idea against his will. "What if these pirates did business with Jango Fett once upon a time?" "Doubtful," Cody said with a pointed shrug. "They couldn't pay his fee." "Hold on. You were not going," Anakin interrupted, voice sharp, face starting to flush. "I think he might be," Kaz said carefully, a bewildered look on his face. "I think so too," Ahsoka mumbled in agreement. "No, he isn't," Anakin insisted. He rounded on Obi-Wan. "Obi-Wan, you can't seriously be considering this." "I think I am," Obi-Wan answered, looking shocked with himself. "Cody's right. A pair of pants, a tunic, a few pieces of his armor, and a robe, and he would look like any other Jedi general serving in the GAR. "No, no way," Anakin growled. He thrust a finger at Cody, eyes still locked on Obi-Wan. "I don't care what he says, you are not going down there without me. It's too dangerous." "Yes, that was my point," Cody snapped, entirely fed up. "Out of all of us, I am the best in unarmed combat, and you know it." Anakin's jaw clenched, the muscles in it jumping up and down, but he didn't contest that statement. He'd watched as Cody had nearly taken out Dooku with just his fists, and knew if the Sith Lord hadn't gotten in that surprise attack with the lightning, Cody would have won. They did not call Jango Fett the Jedi killer for nothing, and Cody had clearly learned at the feet of the Master before his untimely death. If Cody had known Dooku could do that, he would have planned for it, and the Count would not have won that engagement. As it stood, Dooku had merely escaped with his life, as Cody had stripped him of his weapon and its loyalty soon after. "That may be," Anakin acknowledged, finding it foolish to debate that very obvious truth, "but I have way more training in the Force than you do. I can do things you've only dreamed of. I don't need hand-to-hand combat skills." Cody's eyes narrowed, but he didn't contest that assertion. Anakin was taught in the temple, and by Obi-Wan. Cody had observed the thorough and dedicated quality of Obi-Wan's instruction with Kaz. If Anakin had gotten even a quarter of that, he would be a power to be reckoned with. But Cody's use of the Force was highly specialized, and he'd been fighting with it at his side with nothing but his fists since he could stand. There was no way Skywalker could best that. "So you can take out a room of armed opponents with just your bare hands and the Force?" Cody challenged him, eyes glinting. Anakin puffed out his chest, setting his hands on his hips. "Yeah, I can." "Oh, stop it, the both of you." Obi-Wan stepped between them, arms crossed, and gave them both a disapproving look. When he had their attention, he grinned mischievously. "There's only one way to settle this." Cody felt dread coil in his gut. "Oh, and what's that, General? Why, rock, flimsy, cutter, of course," Obi-Wan exclaimed jovially. "Surely you are both familiar with it?" "Oh, come on, Master." Anakin rolled his eyes, fixing Obi-Wan with an annoyed look. "No, I'm not playing chance games with a trooper." Cody felt true anger start to bubble under his skin at that. He smirked, drawing himself up to his full height, eyes flashing dangerously, radiating cockiness out of every pore. "Why? Afraid you'll lose?" Anakin took the bait, turning to glare at Cody. "No, I'm not." Cody held out his hands, one palm up, the other curled in a fist and resting on it. "Best 2 out of 3? I don't need 3 chances to beat you, just 1. Anakin mimicked his movements, blue eyes dark and stormy as he glared at the commander. "You sure? You sure? You can't change your mind after," Cody said, slowly and clearly, eyes intent. No takebacks. Unsure. Anakin growled, cheeks flushed, anger snapping out of him in the Force. Cody sharpened his own shields, letting the spikes brush against Anakin's and taking satisfaction when the other man winced a little, backing off his anger a hair. All right then, Rex. Call the count. Rex walked up to them warily, like he was approaching two wild animals, his eyes flickering back and forth between them. Behind him, Kaz and Ahsoka were standing so close together their arms were brushing, twin worried looks on their faces. Cody felt a brief flash of regret for scaring them, and when Kaz pushed denial down their bond at that thought, he realized it was Skywalker that had them all on edge. Cody felt even more determined to win, reminded suddenly of Kaz's vision in the crystal caves. Looking in Anakin's eyes now, filled with jealous anger like they were, it was easy to imagine them changing color. Yo, okay, best of one. Rex blew out a long breath. On 3? He waited for them to nod and continued. On 3. Yeah, 1, 2, 3. When Rex got to 3, Cody quickly jabbed his shield's dead center into Skywalker's Force presence, distracting the man, hoping it would keep him from seeing Cody's choice before he could make it, and prayed that it would be enough. Skywalker had been right about one thing. Cody couldn't match him for Jedi training, but Cody had other ways to win. Cody felt his hands move without his conscious thought, settling into a shape before his mind could even pick one. He looked down at their hands and felt a grin start to split his face. He had cutter. Skywalker had flimsy. I win, Cody said, smirking over at the other general. Looks like you're staying here, General Skywalker. This is crazy. Anakin snapped viciously, his Force presence lashing out with his words. He turned angry eyes onto Obi-Wan again. You aren't really going along with this, are you, Obi-Wan? You lost fair and square, Anakin, Obi-Wan said, voice calculatingly calm. He crossed his arms, fingers curling over his elbows. Accept it gracefully and be ready here in orbit in case we need you. You may yet get to save the day after all. Some of Anakin's anger cooled at that, but it certainly didn't disperse. Fine, he ground out and whirled around, stalking towards the lift. He called back over his shoulder, waving a dismissive hand. That's my old shuttle. Raid it for whatever you want. I don't give a criff. When he disappeared into the lift, it felt like a bubble popped and everyone sagged like puppets that had their strings cut. Cody cast a concerned look over to Kaz and Ahsoka, striding over to them quickly, intent on making sure they were okay. He knew Kaz still reacted very negatively to people fighting, and hated that it had happened in front of the cadet. Kaz, Ahsoka, are you alright? Cody asked, voice colored with concern. Ahsoka answered first. Yes, Commander Cody, I'm okay, she grimaced. That was just really uncomfortable. Yes, it was, I apologize. Obi-Wan joined the conversation. I'm afraid my teachings on anger never quite took. Cody held in his thoughts about that. Skywalker didn't have any excuse. Cody knew what kind of a teacher Obi-Wan was. Skywalker deliberately misunderstood at times. Cody had watched it happen before they had both been promoted. Kaz, how are you, kid? Kaz gulped and blew out a long breath, determinedly pushing his anxiety into the Force. I'll be fine. Just need a minute or two to meditate. Cody poked at him down their bond and ascertained that the cadet was telling the truth. He nodded. All right. Good. I can't believe you did that, Rex weighed in, arms crossed and head shaking. Of course I did it, Cody said back without even thinking. No way in the 9 Corellian hills would I let my general go down there alone and unarmed without good backup. Anakin is perfectly fine backup, Obi-Wan defended his former student, frowning at Cody. No, he isn't, Cody disagreed, face twisting up in apology. I know you care about him, General, but he's a little bit of a loose cannon. And he can't fight with his fists, sir. Obi-Wan opened his mouth to disagree, then shut it with a resigned sigh. Yes, you're right. He can't fight with his fists, at least. Not like you. He shook the thoughts away to deal with later and motioned towards the shuttle. We should get you set up to look the part, Cody. We seem to be locked into this course of action in any case. Cody gulped, the ramifications of what he'd suggested truly coming home to roost. Yes, sir, he said, voice a little strangled. He agreed with Rex. He couldn't believe he'd done that. What the hell's had he been thinking? Lead the way, General. This I gotta see, Kaz said eagerly, grinning at Ahsoka and Rex. Oh, totally, Ahsoka agreed with an answering smirk. I thought you said you weren't a Jedi, Cody, Rex taunted his retreating back. Cody flicked him, a rude gesture behind his head, and Rex just laughed, not at all cowed. Cody followed Obi-Wan into the shuttle, heading into the back of the cargo bay where a footlocker was situated. Obi-Wan opened it, revealing a few random bits of machinery, a Jedi outer robe in dark brown, a pair of pants, and a single set of tunics that looked a little singed on the edges. Clearly, Skywalker had been using them to make some kind of electronics repairs last he'd worn them. Cody figured with his blacks on underneath, and the same pieces of his armor on that Obi-Wan used, minus the chest plate, it should be fairly simple to disguise him. Obi-Wan held the garments out to him, and Cody took them cautiously. Last chance to back out, Cody. Anakin would probably still go with me. No, I'm going, Cody asserted, his eyes fierce. I'm not letting you do this alone or without me, Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan sighed heavily. I appreciate the sentiment, but Cody, this cannot happen again. Cody winced, realizing the truth of that statement even though he didn't like it. I know, I'm sorry. The situation got away from me. I wasn't ready for that. Neither was I, Obi-Wan admitted with a rueful chuckle. The Council are going to be furious. We'll just have to tell them everything about me then, Cody said, looking down at the clothes in his hands. You probably should have done that at the start. It was always your choice, Cody, Obi-Wan told him, stepping up closer and putting a hand on Cody's cheek gently, tipping up his face to look him in the eyes. I would never force you to tell someone else your secrets. That's hardly fair, I know. It's one of the things that made me love you, Cody answered, smiling softly. But it doesn't make things easier. No, it doesn't. Obi-Wan leaned in, pressing a quick, comforting kiss on Cody's lips. His hand slid from the commander's cheek and patted his shoulder. Go on. Get dressed. It's time for you to impersonate a Jedi. Cody took a step back and laughed, letting the clothes float up out of his hands. I don't know how much impersonating I'm really doing, do you? Obi-Wan rolled his eyes, smiling. Oh, all right. Hurry up, Cody. The others are waiting. Cody ducked into the tiny fresher and quickly completed his costume change, stripping himself of his armor, pulling on the borrowed pants and tunic, next his boots and then shin guards on over that, followed by his arm guards, pauldrons and vambraces. He snapped his utility belt in place, threw the cloak over it all and regarded himself in the mirror. He did a double take, hardly able to recognize himself. He imagined briefly that this is maybe how Kaz would look if he were older. With the lightsaber currently clipped to his belt, he really did look the part. It was startling. Cautiously, he stepped out of the fresher to find Obi-Wan anxiously watching the door. The Jedi Master's jaw dropped when Cody stepped all the way out into the small cargo bay. Eyes roving up and down, Obi-Wan surveyed every inch of his commander, shocked into silence at the transformation. Cody looked like a human Jedi general, the scar adding an air of roguishness that reminded him a little of Anakin, but with an even more dangerous air. Cody gave off the impression he was always on the edge of violence. That's you! Wow! Obi-Wan stuttered, his words failing him. He blinked rapidly, shaking his head. The Force was bending weirdly around Cody, and for a moment, Obi-Wan saw a wild field of possibilities spin out in front of him before he pushed it gently away. Now was not the time. You certainly look the part, Cody. Cody rubbed sheepishly at the back of his head. Yeah, I know. It worked better than I thought, he smirked. Let's go show Kaz real quick, then we should go. Oh, absolutely, Obi-Wan eagerly agreed, following Cody out of the ship. He, too, wanted to see Kaz and Rex's reactions. Mischievously, Cody threw the hood of the cloak over his head right before they stepped off the ship and slid his hands into his sleeves in a motion he'd seen Obi-Wan do 1,000 times at least. When he stepped off the ship, he hid his smirk in the shadow of his hood, watching as Rex gaped at him, mouth working like a fish out of water. Kaz was grinning so hard his face had to hurt, and Ahsoka's hands were over her mouth in quiet surprise. Well, Cody prompted them. Quiff me, Rex breathed out. He shook his head, expression incredulous. Yeah, you were right. No way are those pirates going to know the difference. If I didn't know better, I'd think you were a master from the temple, Ahsoka said, eyes wide. So, Cody, Kaz said with a wicked smirk. Still not a Jedi? Cody huffed a laugh. I'll get back to you on that, kid. Well, we'd best get going, Obi-Wan said, head tilting towards the shuttle. Oh, Cody, better leave your lightsaber here. Who knows if they'll scavenge our shuttle or not? Wouldn't want it stolen, Cody winced, unclipping the blade and holding it out to Rex. Good point. Keep an eye on this for me, Rex. I want it back. Rex reached down, took it carefully, nodding solemnly. Of course, Cody. He clipped it to his belt, then looked up at his brother, eyes serious. Be careful, Vod. Koyasi, Kote. I will, Rexika. Koyasi. Cody nodded at him, knowing Rex couldn't really see his face with the hood. See you later, kid. Reta Hai, Kazika. Koyatsia, Cody, Kaz smiled at him. May the Force be with you, Master Obi-Wan, Koyasi, and with you, Kaz. Cody and I will be back shortly. Ret Hai. Good luck, Master Obi-Wan, Ahsoka said with a short bow. Thank you, Ahsoka. Obi-Wan returned her bow, then turned and made for the shuttle, Cody following behind him. Settling into the cockpit, Obi-Wan and Cody started the takeoff procedures, getting out and into space easily. Obi-Wan left a communication with Admiral Yularen to have the fleet follow them to Florum in case backup was required, and then they made the jump to hyperspace. They did not have far to travel. Florum was only 6 parsecs from Vancor, which made for a short jump in their attack shuttle. Not the same shuttle that had been used for bait against the Count, but Skywalker's old personal one that he had left on the Negotiator prior to his capture by the Count in case Ahsoka had needed it. It had apparently been his before he'd acquired the Twilight. A quick poke through the cargo hold had turned up another cloak, this one hilariously having belonged to Obi-Wan, further proving the age of the shuttle. Cody and Obi-Wan settled in for the short trip in the cockpit, Obi-Wan in the pilot seat and Cody in the co-pilots. They had been silent. And now Cody was feeling the weight of that silence and a small amount of regret that he'd been so bull-headed about coming on the mission. He shouldn't have done it, but the point was moot now. Only onward. Cody blew out a sigh, eyes slanting over to Obi-Wan. The Jedi was focused on the hyperspace view before them, deftly piloting the ship. Cody swallowed, bit his lip, gathered his courage and spoke. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have gotten into it with Skywalker. The tense set of Obi-Wan's shoulders relaxed a little. I accept your apology, and I offer one of my own. He glanced over at Cody, lips twisted in irony. I goaded you on by suggesting that game. I apologize. That was unbecoming of me. I accept your apology, Cody said, smiling a little at the formal phrasing. I think we all got a little caught up in the moment. Yes, we did. Obi-Wan shook his head, lips still twitching upwards. He looked at Cody out of the corner of his eye. What an example we all set for our children, Cody barked out a startled laugh. Oh yeah, only the best. Kaz will forgive you, Obi-Wan. Honestly, I don't think he even thought it was anything out of the ordinary. Skywalker and Tenno? They'll have to sort themselves out. Ah yes, Obi-Wan winced at the mention of Ahsoka and Anakin. I shudder to think what Ahsoka's opinion of us must be. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about that, Cody assured him with a smirk. The things Rex says about her and the stories he tells, she's fine. I don't think she's the perfect little temple Padawan that you think she is, Obi-Wan. You think? Obi-Wan turned his head to give Cody a hopeful look. She joined forces with Jesse, Hardcase and Fives last week to paint a full-bodied Twi'lek dancer on the entire hull of a LAAT, Cody told him with a dramatic eye roll. Rex about burst a vein from his head. She did not, Obi-Wan exclaimed, scandalized. His expression settled into one of cautious interest. Did she really? Oh yeah. I have the pictures to prove it, Cody assured him with a wicked grin. I kept forgetting to show them to you. His grin and manner turned flirtatious. Every time I went to your quarters, I wound up getting distracted. I wonder why. I've no idea, Obi-Wan's eyes sparkled, hints of color appearing high on his cheeks, but he leaned into the flirting like it was easy as breathing. My memory is a little hazy. I might need a reminder later. Yeah, I can arrange that. Cody edged a little over the arm of his seat, amber eyes locked on Obi-Wan's, sultry smirk tugging at his lips. Later, Obi-Wan shifted in his seat, clearing his throat, hands twisting on the flight controls. He took in a deep breath, visibly letting his feelings out into the Force. We need to focus on the mission. Cody leaned back into his seat, settling into it, his smugness radiating out into the air. He cleared his throat and crossed his arms primly over his chest, not trying to hide his smirk. Right. The mission. Of course. Obi-Wan narrowed his eyes at him. You have a hidden, devious streak a parsec wide, Cody. Oh, do I? Cody said laughingly. How kind of you to notice, Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan just shook his head in dismay. He fixed Cody with a serious look. "We do need to at least hammer out your cover story, Cody, in case they ask questions." Cody's smirk faded and his face smoothed out into his commander's mask, mind sharpening onto the task. "Yeah, you're right. Any suggestions? How do you feel about impersonation?" "Not a skill I have," Cody said with an apologetic shrug. "We should probably just invent something. Start fresh." Obi-Wan trailed off, lost in thought for a moment, eyes going distant. He stayed that way for a long moment before coming back to himself. "The 17th Special Forces Battalion just lost their general and are in need of a new one. Do you feel up to the task, Master Jedi?" "I do," Cody replied with a bit of a grin. "Doubt Master Cody is going to work all on its own, though." "No, likely not." Obi-Wan paused, letting himself think it over a moment before he suddenly grinned over at Cody. "But Master Coke Verd might, only if the pirates don't speak Mandoa," Cody said with an eye roll. "How likely is it that a bunch of Weequay pirates will speak Mandoa?" It was Obi-Wan's turn to smirk slyly at Cody. "Besides, it will make it easy for me to remember your cover name." "Yeah, since it's my name." Cody flailed an irritated hand in the air at his partner. "Ooh, precisely. You won't have to lie when you introduce yourself. Some beings are particularly savvy at detecting falsehoods. Best not to chance it." Cody dropped his head back, staring forlornly at the ceiling and blowing out a sigh. "You're impossible." Obi-Wan's delighted laughter filled the cockpit. "Why, thank you, Cody." Cody turned his head and gave Obi-Wan a baleful look. "That wasn't a compliment. I chose to take it as one to save you having to apologize again." "Of course you did." Cody shook his head. He dropped his hand back into his lap and straightened in his seat, blowing out a resigned breath. "Well, I guess I am General Cote Verd of the 173rd Special Forces Battalion, here to assist General Obi-Wan Kenobi with negotiations." Yes, by standing intimidatingly beside me. Put on your best glower, Cody. With that scar, your build, and your hood, you will certainly appear to be the most dangerous one, Obi-Wan replied, sounding deadly serious. "They will focus on you, and hopefully give me space to verbally maneuver." "Is that what Skywalker usually does?" Cody asked, genuinely curious. "Ah, no, Obi-Wan said with a wince. "He tends to incite chaos." He shrugged blithely. "I've learned to work with it, and it normally turns out fine." Cody's jaw clenched. Right. Obi-Wan was saved from answering by the proximity alarms alerting them that they were approaching their destination. Expertly, Obi-Wan dropped them out of hyperspace and began the approach to the planet. The sensors picked up a large concentration of energy and power at the coordinates the pirates had provided, so they made for that. The planet was similar to Tatooine in that it was largely monocolored, but unlike Tatooine, it had grass and a larger variety of flora and fauna. In the viewport, the compound the pirates used became visible, and Obi-Wan banked the shuttle around, settling it in next to a saucer-shaped ship Cody recognized as a Flare Star-class attack shuttle. It clearly belonged to the larger Corona-class frigate in orbit. Landing gear deployed, they shared a look, then stood, moving towards the back of the shuttle. Cody hadn't really noticed it on the trip to the planet, but now he felt entirely naked without his blaster or a weapon of any kind. He could easily defend himself without one, but he definitely preferred his blaster to his fists. Although slicing up droids with a lightsaber had been a bit of a revelation, and he had the feeling he might appreciate it a lot down the road. Obi-Wan paused by the switch for the docking ramp, giving Cody a searching look. "Last chance to back out, Cody." Cody stepped right up into his personal space, hands settling easily on Obi-Wan's hips. He leaned in, Obi-Wan meeting him halfway for a brief kiss. He pulled back, resting their heads together in a covenant. "No way in hell, Obi-Wan." That's what I thought." Obi-Wan's lips twitched up in a smile before he stepped back, and Cody did the same, hands falling away. Once again, all business, Cody flipped the hood of his cloak over his head as Obi-Wan engaged the docking ramp and opened the door of the shuttle. Obi-Wan copied his movements, and as one, they each slipped their arms into their sleeves and descended the ramp. Waiting for them at the bottom was a cluster of pirates, all of them armed, and one of whom was holding a weapons scanner and watching them with a wary eye. Cody tensed, unused to having that many blaster rifles pointed right at him when he did not have one of his own. He forced himself to relax and follow Obi-Wan through the path the pirates had given them. They were stopped by the pirate with the scanner, and he gave them a thorough once-over before waving his arm gruffly. "Follow me!" Obi-Wan locked eyes with Cody, shrugged minutely, and they set off after the pirate. He led them into the main compound, through a hallway that deposited itself into what looked like a cantina. Cody cast his eyes around it, taking in the entrances, exits, number of bodies inside, their state of inebriation, and the sharpness in their eyes. Dim lighting and the music made it hard to get an accurate gauge, but Cody could feel the Force feeding him information on the various threats in the room and stored all of it away for later. The crowd they were walking through parted, and sitting behind the bar counter and reclining like a king was the pirate captain himself. "Gentlemen," he called with an expansive gesture, the liquid in his cup sloshing a little. He leaned back even further, tipping the cup to his lips. "Can I offer you something to drink?" "No, thank you," Obi-Wan said blandly as they stopped in front of the bar. Cody let the hood hide his eyes as they roamed the room, keeping still and silent by Obi-Wan's side. The pirate captain backhanded a single mug of green liquid, and it skidded across the bar top, coming to a stop in front of Obi-Wan, who looked down at it with a vague curl of his lip. Neither of them made a move to pick it up. The pirate let out a quiet chuckle but said nothing. "Congratulations on your capture of Count Dooku." Obi-Wan picked up the conversation again. "Very impressive." "Yes, it was," the pirate captain said, swaying a little in his seat with his gestures, the braids at the back of his head wiggling. He tipped his cup up in a salute. "Even a Sith Lord is no match for my warriors." He took another gulp, then twisted, slamming the mud down, sloshing liquid onto the table. His hands were braced on the bar top, feet on the floor, upper body leaning over. He started talking avidly with his hands. He put up quite a fight. "Blasters, cannons," he paused, waving a hand through the air like he was clutching something in it and making whooshing sounds. "And that glowy thing." "A lightsaber?" Obi-Wan prompted with a single raised eyebrow. "That's it!" The pirate snapped his fingers in triumph. He waggled those same fingers at them, and I don't need to tell you, those things can do some damage. As he spoke, a small pinkish-red pick-muck-muck hopped around the table, brandishing a bottle of liquor in one hand and Skywalker's lightsaber in the other. "Carved up some of my best men pretty good before I could get the jump on him." "Ah, I see," Obi-Wan replied non-committally. "And, by chance, did you happen to get the jump on him with that weapon, there?" The pirate captain's gaze narrowed, and he eyed Obi-Wan shrewdly. No, that was his weapon. We used our own." "Ah," Obi-Wan said, "my mistake." He slipped a hand from his sleeve and gestured to the saber. "It might interest you to know he stole that from an acquaintance of mine. I would be willing to trade on his behalf for its safe return." Cody narrowed his eyes and glared briefly at the side of Obi-Wan's head, before turning to look at the pirates that were slowly inching closer to them, like they expected violence to suddenly erupt. Cody did not disavow them of that notion, doing what Obi-Wan said and giving them his best menacing glower. It seemed to work. A few of them shrunk back. Cody hid his smirk in his hood and turned back to the conversation. "Oh, would you now?" The pirate's eyes gleamed in interest. "So, now I have 2 items of value to the great Galactic Republic? It must be my lucky day." "Speaking of which," Obi-Wan interrupted smoothly, "our purpose here was to confirm you have Count Dooku. We would be much obliged if you would take us to him." Pushing to his feet, the pirate crossed his arms and gave them both a calculating look. He relaxed, gesturing widely with his arms, bowing his head slightly. Of course. I will arrange a meeting." "Right this way, Jedi." Following the flamboyant captain, Obi-Wan and Cody watched the assembled pirates in the cantina carefully, only relaxing lightly when they left it to walk down a hallway with just the captain and the occasional passing weequay. On the way out, Cody felt Obi-Wan look longingly at Anakin's lightsaber, trying to figure out a way to clandestinely snatch it back without upsetting their hosts. They'd made known that they wanted it, now they just had to figure out how to get it. Cody counted the turns, memorizing the path from the cantina to the holding cells, knowing they may have to run it in a hurry later on. He was getting that vibe from this group of lowlifes. "Oi, Hondo," one of the guards greeted as they stopped at an occupied cell. "You need something, Captain?" "Yes," the pirate captain Hondo said. He hooked a thumb over his shoulder at Obi-Wan and Cody. "These two need to see our guest, my friend." "Oh, course, sir." The guard stepped aside and triggered the door. Hondo gestured at it and stepped out of their way. Obi-Wan walked in first, spotting Count Dooku suspended in the containment field, the energy-reactive cuffs secured on his wrists and ankles. His face was a mess of bruising and blood from where Cody had gotten a solid hit in before on the Count's ship. His nose was crooked, one eye had vivid bruising around it, and his beard was caked in blood down to his chin, with some of it staining his collar. When he saw just who was in his cell, his eyes narrowed, and a vicious snarl made its way onto his lips. "You!" Dooku spat, yellow eyes flashing in rage when they landed on Cody. "You will pay dearly for what you have done. I hardly think you're in a position to be making threats, Count," Obi-Wan observed idly, drawing attention to himself and walking a slow circle around the man as Cody took up a post near the door. "You look a little tied up at the moment. Making puns?" "Qui-Gon would be so disappointed," Dooku said, voice oily, smarmy look on his face even with the bruising. He glared at Cody again, the dark side flaring out into the little room. It tickled at Cody's senses, and he gave it a hard mental slap, pulling on the glowing core at his center, resting back a little into the Force, knowing from his experience on Dooku's ship that it would come to his defense if he let it. The dark skittered away with a little hiss, and Cody gave its mental presence a wary eye. "I see you've brought your feral attack dog instead of Skywalker," Dooku continued, eyes sharp and assessing. "Finally tire of his inane prattling Grand Padawan?" Obi-Wan stopped his slow circle to whirl on Dooku, anger sparking in his eyes. "Hardly." His lip curled up like he smelled something unpleasant. "Get comfortable, Count. You'll be like this for a while. We'll be taking you to Coruscant to face justice." "Oh, if that's what you think will happen, you are truly naive," Dooku said with a pitying scoff. "Come now, did you not heed my warning before on Geonosis, Obi-Wan?" Cody felt alarm ping down his spine, something about that sounding entirely important. He tensed, fists clenching in his sleeves, and he drew the Force around him, tightening his shields and sharpening the spikes. As he did, he could feel Dooku's Force presence reaching out to him, assessing, and Cody recoiled, stabbing it hard with a flare of his shields, smirking in victory when the Count winced and hissed from his position in the suspension field. Obi-Wan's eyes glittered with satisfaction, having felt the occurrence. "What's the matter, Dooku? Try something you shouldn't have." He made a dismissive gesture with his hand. "And as for your warning, I hardly believed it the first time, and that has not changed. Why should I believe you now?" Abruptly, Dooku threw his head back and laughed. When he looked at Obi-Wan, his eyes were wild, his face almost manic with the bruising and the blood crusted all over it. "Obi-Wan Kenobi, you impress me. A clone at your side, strong in the dark side of the Force? I would not have thought it of you." Obi-Wan felt his blood freeze in his veins, coming to the awful realization that he should not have let Cody come anywhere near this man. Cody is not dark. And further, this is not about him, it's about you. Dooku sneered down at him, somehow managing to look superior even with a crooked nose in his captive state. "Oh, you poor dear!" His expression turned pitying. "You know nothing. He uses Sith mental arts like one would use a limb." "What?" Cody felt his muscles go slack, horror starting to fill him, only to be replaced by incandescent rage. He stalked forward, twitching his hood from his head and glaring up at Dooku. "What the hell are you talking about, Dar Jedi? Oh, what anger!" "And fear," Dooku laughed, the sound low and grating, sending chills down Cody's spine and stopping the man in his tracks. "You would make an excellent apprentice." "Enough!" Obi-Wan roared, stepping between Dooku and Cody, arm thrown out in emphasis. "Be silent!" He whirled, grabbing Cody by his bicep and dragging him towards the door. "I've seen enough. Let's go." Cody let himself be manhandled, his mind spinning so fast he felt like it was making him dizzy. The Force screamed around him, warring in his mind, and Obi-Wan's worried voice and words were not making it through as comprehensible sounds. The dark side. He had been using the dark side. The entire time. He wasn't falling, he had already landed. Hands on his jaw turned his face up, and he could see Obi-Wan's worried blue eyes, feel his warm gloves on his cheeks, sense his distress through their bond, and knew that now was not the time to lose it. They were in enemy territory and Obi-Wan needed him to protect him. No matter what he was, Cody would always protect Obi-Wan. Sensation roared back into him, and he was aware of the roiling in his gut, The panicked sound of Obi-Wan's voice, the rough texture of his borrowed tunics over his blacks, the comforting weight of his armor, and the frantic beat of his heart as it thudded in his chest. He shook his head, dislodging Obi-Wan's hands, and stood to his feet, wondering when it was he'd wound up kneeling on the ground. Scattered around them were the pirates, but they looked more stunned than aggressive. "Cody!" Obi-Wan's eyes roved over his face, worry radiating out from him. "Are you all right?" Cody just nodded, not trusting himself to speak yet. He glanced around, noticing that the captain was nowhere to be found, and only a handful of his men were in the corridor. The original guards moved back to their posts, shutting the door and cutting off Dooku's low, sinister chuckling as they did. Cody took in a deep breath and made to pull on the force out of habit, only to mentally flinch back from it, fear spiking, and instead he retreated back into himself like he had done at Kamino, trying to shut it out entirely. He wouldn't ever touch it again. And when he got back to the ship, he was throwing that lightsaber straight out of the airlock. Maybe, if he swore to never use the Force again, he wouldn't have to be decommissioned. "I'm fine, General," Cody said, amazed that his voice was level. He felt like he was breaking apart at the seams. "We need to go report in that they have Count Dooku." Obi-Wan looked like he was going to protest that statement, then realized where they were and capitulated ungracefully. "Yes, you're right." Obi-Wan started off down the corridor, giving Cody worried glances out of the corner of his eyes but holding his tongue. He prodded Cody down their bond, his worry ratcheting higher each time he didn't get a response. "I never should have let him come," he thought. "This never should have happened." Cody didn't react to his thoughts, and Obi-Wan felt that closeness they had enjoyed before slowly slipping away from him. He cursed himself for a fool in every language he knew before his mental tirade was interrupted by the appearance of a pirate in their path. "Jedi," he greeted, accent heavy. "Now that your business is completed, we invite you to join us in the Grand Hall for a banquet." He smiled, something dangerous in it as he did. And a true Weequay banquet is not to be missed. Obi-Wan could sense the vague threat in those words and felt his frustration peak. Now was not the time for this. Outwardly, he kept his calm and spoke. "Ah, yes, of course. We would be honored. Please, allow us to contact the Senate to confirm your custody of Dooku first. I do assume you wish to be paid after all." The pirate nodded, looking like he had expected that answer. "Of course. We look forward to seeing you later." Obi-Wan inclined his head in thanks. "But of course," he smiled grimly. "If you'll excuse us." The pirate stepped aside easily, and Obi-Wan continued his dogged journey to the shuttle. Passing in front of his eyes in a blur, Obi-Wan made his way through what remained of the compound, barely stopping himself from sprinting into the shuttle when he came out into the courtyard where it was docked. Amazingly, he and Cody walked up the docking ramp calmly, and the moment they were in the cockpit, Obi-Wan triggered the interior door closed and rounded on Cody. "Cody, start. Are you all right?" He reached out for the commander, whose face was blank and eyes distant. Cody sparked to life the moment Obi-Wan's hands touched his shoulders, but not in a way that Obi-Wan wanted. "Don't touch me!" Cody snapped, shrinking back to the farthest corner of the cockpit away from Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan held his hands out, palms up. "All right, I won't, I'm sorry. I was just trying to—" "I know," Cody bit out, interrupting him. His Force presence was a veritable storm of emotion, the core of him barely discernible through it. He glared at Obi-Wan. "Did you know?" "What?" Obi-Wan reared back in confusion. "That I was using the dark side," Cody snarled at him, eyes hard. "Did you know?" Obi-Wan's arms went slack, hanging limply by his sides, looking like Cody had reached over and slapped him. "Using the dark side? Cody, what the devil are you talking about? Did you lie to me?" Cody's face twisted up into an ugly expression, and he took a menacing step forward. "Oh, no!" Obi-Wan flung his hands out in an emphatic gesture, his own glare sharpening his features. "And I'll thank you not to accuse me of that. I would not, and have not lied to you, Cody." "Then you didn't know," Cody breathed, some of his anger draining out of him. "Cody, what are you talking about?" Obi-Wan inched closer, voice gentle, one hand held out in entreaty. "I've been using the dark side of the Force this whole time," Cody said, voice flat, face blank, Force presence screaming in pain at Obi-Wan. "That's pure bullshit," Obi-Wan immediately and vehemently objected. Cody's eyes snapped over to him in surprise. What do you take me for, Cody? Do you think that I, a Jedi Master and the first to kill a Sith in 1,000 years, wouldn't notice when someone I love was using the dark side right under my nose? Do you think so little of my abilities? It was Cody's turn to look like he'd been slapped, face crumpling in pain. Oh, no, of course not. That's not what I... He trailed off, frown marring his features, eyes distant as he thought over the last few minutes. Suddenly he winced, the last of his anger draining out of him abruptly. I guess that's exactly what I was saying. Apologetic eyes fixed on Obi-Wan. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it like that, but... Obi-Wan's shoulders sagged, relief making his muscles weak. Staggering, he walked over to the pilot's seat, turning it outward, and sat, dropping his head into his hands. Oh, thank the Force! Obi-Wan, Cody yelped in alarm, darting over and kneeling in front of the other man, his own issues forgotten in the face of his partner's distress. His hands closed over Obi-Wan's wrists. What's wrong? Are you okay? Me? Obi-Wan looked up at him incredulously. You're asking me if I'm all right. Yoddy, I should be asking you that. In fact, I am. Are you okay? Cody considered that for a moment. No, not really. He swallowed hard, throat clicking, eyes locked onto Obi-Wan's, deciding to tackle the problem head-on like he always did. What did he mean that I used the Sith arts like one uses a limb? Oh, Cody, Obi-Wan breathed out, empathy carved into the lines of his face. He reached out, gently laying a hand on Cody's cheek, and was cheered by the fact that the commander let him. Cody was particular about being touched when he was upset. Udesi, Kote. He was wrong. You remember what I told you before about that Rishi eel? Cody frowned, searching his memory, then understanding dawned. The spikes. He was talking about the spikes. Cody stood abruptly, stalking about the small cockpit like a caged animal. That demigolka. How dare he imply? I would never good apprentice my shebs. Obi-Wan let out a startled laugh, breathing out a sigh of relief again as he did. He was manipulating you, Cody. Very effectively, it seems. Cody paused in his stalking, eyes sharp and calculating. I know, but... He crossed his arms, thinking hard. Not everything he said was a complete lie. You told me that what I did was a very grey area, Obi-Wan. And you've been telling me that since the beginning. His eyes narrowed suddenly, another thought occurring. He said mental arts. As in more than one. What was the other one? That question brought Obi-Wan up short. I have no... Wait! His eyes went wide and he looked up at Cody, elbows on his knees, hands hanging between them, hair brushing his eyebrows across his forehead. The way you disappear into the Force. That must be what he meant. Agitation prickled up and down Cody's back and shoulders. I've been able to do that since I could string two thoughts together on Kamino. Yes, but I don't know a single Jedi alive who does it quite so thoroughly as you do, Obi-Wan answered him, voice solemn. Do not mistake me, we can conceal our presences in the Force, but you take it that one step further. Suddenly he stood, looking like he'd had a revelation. That's it. What's it? Cody asked, confused and feeling like he had whiplash from this conversation, but absurdly grateful for the change of subject. He wanted some time to himself to think and sort through what Dooku had told him, and Obi-Wan provided a timely distraction. We Jedi can sense each other in the Force. You know this, of course, Obi-Wan said, gesturing with his hands in the air as he paced and spoke, his anxious adrenaline now focused on a new target. So then why is it that we never know Asajj Ventress or Dooku or even Grievous are on the battlefield until they suddenly appear? Do you remember Teth, Commander? Understanding dawned into Cody's mind. Ventress was there, but you had no idea and dragged Kaz right to her. I didn't know she was there until she wanted me to, Obi-Wan said. Same with her appearance on Christophsis. She'd been there for days getting transmissions from Slick and we never noticed. This is quite a leap, Obi-Wan, Cody said, voice hesitant. Well, we shall just have to interrogate Dooku when we have him in our custody, Obi-Wan said definitively. He froze mid-step, blood going cold and chills pimpling his skin. He told me on Geonosis that the Sith Lord had control of the Galactic Senate. I had dismissed it at the time, thinking surely the Jedi Council and the collective Jedi Order as a whole would have been able to sense such a thing. We sleep nearly next door to the Senate. But cocking bloody fuck, Cody breathed when the dots connected in his mind. If they can hide, then they've been here this whole time. Precisely, Obi-Wan gulped, giving Cody a wide-eyed look. Suddenly, he shook himself. We can't deal with this now. We need to get Dooku to Coruscant post-haste, and that means letting them know we have him. I'll start the call. Cody walked the short distance to the comlink and punched in the frequency quickly. He shelved their revelations for later, as they already had one crisis on their plates and did not need more. When the blue forms of General Windu, Senator Karras, Representative Binks, and Chancellor Palpatine appeared in the holoprojector, Cody felt like he'd inadvertently walked right into a trap. He slammed his shields down so hard and so fast he felt Obi-Wan jolt next to him, sliding them into the mirrored state he used when he wanted to hide. Something about the Chancellor made his skin crawl, and he figured it had to do with the fact that the man could have him killed as easy as breathing. He would take no chances with him. Master Kenobi, the Chancellor greeted with a genial smile. It's good to finally hear from you. Have you located Count Dooku? Yes, Chancellor, Obi-Wan answered, controlling the urge to look at Cody worriedly. Commander Cody and I have confirmed the pirates are holding him for ransom. That startled the Chancellor, and he looked over at Cody in surprise. Upon my word, Commander Cody, I didn't recognize you. He turned his confused gaze back to Obi-Wan. What happened to Anakin? Is he all right? Anakin is fine. He's with the fleet, Your Excellency, Obi-Wan replied, keeping his voice level and expression blandly polite. We decided, since they demanded we go in unarmed, that it would be wise to send someone skilled in unarmed combat in case conflict happened to spontaneously erupt. Ah, that was probably wise, the Chancellor agreed sagely. Well, we are glad to know you've confirmed their reports are genuine. And Dooku is being held securely. Yes, Chancellor, Obi-Wan answered with a nod. He's not happy about it in the slightest. Ah, well, Palpatine smiled a little at that, as if the information amused him. Senator Karras and Representative Binks will be on their way to you at once. Thank you, Master Kenobi. And you as well, Commander Cody. Good work. Of course, thank you, Chancellor Palpatine. Obi-Wan inclined his head in a bow. We've been invited to a banquet, and I'm afraid we've kept our hosts waiting. We will keep an eye out for the Senator and his entourage. Enjoy your evening, Master Jedi. May the Force be with you. And also with you, Chancellor. Obi-Wan cut the connection and looked over at Cody. Well, that went better than I expected. You're probably going to hear about it later, Cody said as they turned, opening the inner cockpit door and walking towards the docking ramp. What's this about a banquet? Oh, you don't remember that pirate in the hall threatening us to attend? Obi-Wan observed mildly as they stepped out into the courtyard. Vaguely, Cody said with a shrug. Ah, yes, well, we were threatened into attending a banquet at Hondo's request, Obi-Wan said as they passed through the hall that led to the cantina. Perfect, Cody said blandly, eyes taking in the new configuration of the cantina. There was one long table in the center, arrayed with a multitude of food and drinks. All around the room, Weequay and Nikto pirates were gathered, clustered in groups of varying size and gender distribution and in various states of drunkenness. Ensconced behind the bar was Hondo. This time he had an entire bottle of liquor in his hands instead of just a mug. He was reclined back, holding court with a cluster of his most trusted men, several platters of food set out on the bar in front of him. The Pick Mukmuk from before was there again, still clutching Anakin's lightsaber in its tiny grip. Ah, my friends. There you are, Hondo greeted them jovially, waving his bottle of booze in salute. We wondered if we needed to send someone to hurry you along. You almost missed dinner. Oh, thank you for your consideration, Captain, Obi-Wan said as they sidled up to the bar. He slid up onto a stool and Cody copied him. And thank you again for your hospitality. Of course. Of course, Hondo smiled charmingly at them, his eyes glittering behind his goggles. He shoved one of the platters of food in their direction. Eat! You look like you could use it, he pointed at Cody. Especially you. My men said you went a little green around the gills earlier. Thank you, Cody replied hesitantly, confused. Slowly he reached out and plucked a shura fruit from the tray, turning it over in his hands. He lifted an eyebrow at Obi-Wan and got the same in return. Shrugging, Cody took a bite. It didn't taste drugged, and it was fresh, the flavor of the juice exploding in his mouth so keenly he thought he was tasting colors for a moment. He hummed, talking around the fruit. This is good. Well, there's more where that came from, Commander, Hondo said, hands waving to include the trays, sharp smile on his face. Cody froze, hand clenching around the yellow, bulbous fruit in his fingers. I'm sorry? You don't think the great Hondo Ohnaka wouldn't know who has come to visit him, do you? Hondo leaned back, taking a long swig of his drink, then leaned forwards, flapping a dismissing hand at Cody. No, of course I know who you are, he shrugged. That disguise is quite brilliant. It almost worked, I have to admit. Ah, yes, well, we apologize for deceiving you, Captain Ohnaka. Obi-Wan interjected himself into the conversation. Oh, no, my friends, of course. Hondo did not seem bothered by the fact they had attempted to trick him. He came unarmed, which I am told is quite a feat for one of your clone troopers, General Kenobi. That was my only request after all. Obi-Wan blinked, not quite sure what to do with this information. I see. Well, I'm glad it worked out then. Oh yes, indeed. Hondo nodded his head sagely, passing his bottle back and forth between his hands. I am reliably informed that your ransom payment is on its way here. Obi-Wan carefully redirected the conversation, reaching out for a mug that was slid in front of him. He looked down at it briefly, prodding at its contents with the force, and when he sensed nothing alarming, he took a sip. It tasted like cheap rum, but was otherwise inoffensive. It should arrive by mid-morning tomorrow. Oh, now that is good news! Hondo lifted his bottle in a toast, clacking it with one of his men who was next to him. He knocked back another swig, making an exaggerated sound when he was done. Good news indeed. Yes, I'm sure you don't need us prevailing upon your hospitality for too much longer. Obi-Wan smiled his negotiator smile at Hondo, leaning back a little on his stool and motioning lightly with his hand as he spoke. Oh, it's no trouble to host friends, Hondo told them, leaning an elbow on the table, voice slightly simpering. You are not putting us out, gentlemen, I assure you. Obi-Wan sighed and knocked back the rest of his drink in one swig, setting the empty mug down on the bar top, studiously ignoring Cody's wide-eyed look at the action. Ah, I see. So that's how it is then. Hondo's smile turned wicked, his eyes gleaming. Elbow balanced on the table, he flicked his hand at his wrist. I'm glad we are able to discuss this like reasonable men, General. Indeed. Violence is so uncivilized, Obi-Wan replied, resting his arms on the table and folding his hands together. I suppose, as we are now your hostages, we are not going to be able to sleep in our shuttle? Cody's upper body twisted rapidly to face Obi-Wan on his stool, and he blurted out a startled, Wait, what? I'm sorry, Commander, but I have grown so fond of your company that I couldn't bear for you to leave, Hondo told him, hands moving theatrically as he spoke. Uh-huh, Cody said through a clenched jaw. Kidnapped by drunken pirates. Rex was never going to let him live this down. This had nothing on the eel incident. I'm sure that's exactly it. Ah, see, now you understand, Hondo smiled charmingly at him. He gestured at the food trays. Eat up, Commander. It'll be a while before you enjoy hospitality such as this again. Cody took a large, mutinous bite of his Shura fruit and cursed mentally in every language he knew. His bond with Kaz flared in concern, and he sent an annoyed pulse down it, letting the cadet know he was fine, but that he would not be coming back until tomorrow, or possibly later. Kaz pressed back that he was going to come there and get him, and Cody frantically waved him off as best he could. Better to pay the man than get into a shootout, as embarrassing as that might turn out to be. Kaz grudgingly subsided, and Cody relaxed a little, coming back to himself to realize the pirates were looking at him expectantly. What? Cody asked them, half-eaten fruit in his hand. Your communicator, the one nearest to him, had his hand out. Cody heaved a sigh, pulling his vambrace off with sticky fingers and handing it over to join Obi-Wan's, as well as his comm unit Puck. Thanks. Well, feel free to enjoy the remains of our hospitality, Hondo said, pushing up from his slump over the bar and standing. The Pikmuk jumped up onto his shoulder, still clutching the lightsaber. Cody briefly entertained the thought of yanking it from the creature's hands with the force, then discarded it. These pirates didn't know he could do that. They thought his Jedi get-up was purely for show, which Cody supposed it was, but there was still an element of truth to it regardless. He needed to wait for a more advantageous moment to strike than this. Eyes sharp, he watched Hondo leap out of a door behind the bar, then sighed, turning to face Obi-Wan. How did we let this happen, sir? The same way Dooku let it happen to him, I imagine, Obi-Wan replied, popping a grape into his mouth blithely. That doesn't make me feel better, Cody grumbled, finishing off his shurafruit. No, it doesn't, does it? Obi-Wan stared down at the bar top and jerked when another mug of alcohol was slid under his nose. He looked up at the bartender and frowned. Really? Boss says. Drink up. The man looked at them implacably. He slid another cup towards Cody, then crossed his arms over his narrow chest. Cody picked up his cup and gave it a suspicious sniff. The Force was pinging warning at him about the contents. This is drugged. Oh, most decidedly, Obi-Wan agreed. He lifted it up in a toast. But if we don't drink it, they're likely to shoot us. Cody clinked his glass against Obi-Wan's and knocked the contents back in one swig. It tasted foul, and he coughed, gagging at the flavor. Criff, that's nasty. Obi-Wan smacked his lips, face screwed up in displeasure. Yes, it is. Sleep inducer. Great. Cody felt himself start to sway, the colors in front of his eyes blending into a kaleidoscope of smeary shapes. I think I'm going to pass out. Head hitting the bar top, Cody did not hear Obi-Wan's response as his world faded to black.